You know, Rob, Wonder Woman 84, or 1984, it's WW84 or Wonder Woman 84, has just come out in theaters. And obviously on HBO Max. And it's fair to say it has come out to mixed reception. A lot of people really did quite like it a lot. A lot of people really hated it, and a bunch of people are kind of in the middle like me, although I lean more towards being quite disappointed by it. Nonetheless, it's a movie that's out there and everybody's talking about and everybody's having a good time with. Here's one of the interesting things about it though, Rob. Despite the fact that there's a lot of different opinion about the film, one part of the film that most people seem to agree on was that the best part of the movie was probably that opening scene on Themyscira. I mean, I've talked to a lot of people who didn't like the movie, but said, oh yeah, that opening scene was pretty fun. That was pretty good. I know I myself, watching the first scene, Rob, watching the first scene, I felt duped because I'm like, this is great. Like, so I watched the first scene. I'm like, this movie's awesome so far. And then for me, it kind of fell off of it. But everybody seemed to agree that they liked that first scene. Well, apparently not everybody liked the first scene because according to Patty Jenkins herself, Warner Brothers wanted her to cut the scene out of the movie. The one part that everybody seemed to like. Now, this is interesting. She was talking in an interview and she said the following. It was not always written in, talking about the opening part with Themyscira. It was not always written in. It was the success of the first film, Themyscira, but it was also something else. I wouldn't have jammed it in there because of the success of the film, because it actually made the movie too long. She's absolutely right. The movie was too long, no doubt about it. It actually made the movie too long. We have two openings in our movie, and we talk about it with the studio all the time, and they would say, you've got to cut the mall and 80s stuff out, or you've got to cut out the Amazon stuff. And I was like, we can't cut either. So, so Warner Brothers apparently wanted her to cut either the 80s and mall scene or the Amazon scene. Now, look, I'm glad to hear Patty Jenkins kind of acknowledge one of the critiques that a lot of us, even people who really like the film, have kind of called out, that the film was too long. This was not a movie that needed to be 2.5 hours long. I think there a lot more crispness and tightness of the story and a good pace could have been done if they had like excised 25 minutes of the film out. So I'm glad she acknowledged that. But the notion of taking out, to me, of taking out that open Amazon scene, that's a ridiculous notion. That scene isn't only probably the best scene in the movie, at least best sequence, but it also did something that other films have a hard time doing. It starts the movie off on a really strong foot. Now, it kind of lost its momentum after that, to me, but it started off on a really good, strong foot. So I find that interesting that Warner Brothers wanted to pull that out. I'm so glad she kept that in. That said, not to sound like I'm all, yeah, Patty against the man, I also kind of wish she listened to Warner Brothers when they said, you know what, you can cut out that mall scene. You can cut that scene out. The scene didn't really do anything. All you needed for the sake of the narrative, Rob, was a short sequence of just showing that there was a break-in at a local fenced jewelry place and some ancient artifact was stolen. That's all you needed. Because that opening action sequence, while there was a couple of cute little moments in it, completely unnecessary, didn't serve the overall story, didn't come back into play. Even the whole 80s, very small 80s nostalgia they did there. So I'm super glad Patty kept that Amazonian scene. You needed to have that. I kind of wish she pulled out the other stuff. I don't know, Rob, you hear about this. What do you think?
Well, I mean, clearly the movie is 2.5 hours. It's really long. Now, I don't know, John, if you were going to fence rare antiquities, would your first place that you would take them to be a jewelry store in a shopping mall?
No, dude, it would be to the Pawn Stars guys. Chum Lee. Chum Lee, here you go. Get me top dollar for this.
I mean, it's like, how do you even get your rare antiquities in and out of the mall without being spotted? I mean, it's just, the whole thing was so silly. And then, of course, Wonder Woman in full Wonder Woman garb.
Trying to not be noticed by people.
As she's using her lasso to destroy the surveillance cameras, as if she could suddenly get all of them. You know, she's not exactly hiding who she is. It's just... I thought that there was so much ridiculous about that mall scene. I kind of was like, I get why they're doing it, but it seemed to me sort of counterproductive, and it didn't seem like Wonder Woman was being very smart. About
what you think's trying to stay incognito while having a 6-foot-tall, gorgeous woman, scantily clad, dressed in shiny gold? That wasn't incognito. That wasn't keeping her flying under the radar. Really?
I mean, in front of hundreds of people. Luckily people didn't have cell phones back then, but it seemed like, I understand why they did it, but it just seemed a little goofy.
I see your point there.
I get that they needed to have an action scene, but it just seemed to me like, I get they wanted to me, it was the most cliche. Shopping mall scenes were cliche in 1984. We'd had Fast Times at Ridgemont High come out. We'd had Valley Girl come out, where shopping malls had already been shown as these great meccas of American consumer culture, and of course Dawn of the Dead. But in going back to 84, that was all they could come up with, was going back to a shopping mall. I mean, I think Stranger Things season 3 kind of had the.
I was just thinking that. I was just thinking that.
Did a really interesting thing, like this Russian base was built underneath the mall. I
so
mean,
ridiculous, but so fun. Anyway, guys, question is for you. What do you think about this? Warner Brothers wanted to pull not just the shopping mall scene, but they wanted to pull what I kind of thought was the best scene of the movie, the opening Amazonian scene. What do you think about that? Do you think they should have left them both in? Do you think they should have pulled them both out? Maybe one or the other? What do you guys think? Jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys.